This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, Mansa, Mornia. Yes. Okay. Uh, where are the others? Only 5 people have joined. Okay, so our topic is I'll complete peroxisomes, vacuoles, and vesicle fusion. Fine. Now see here. We have completed this lysosome portion. So we will be doing this peroxisome, vacuoles, and vesicle fusion is pertaining to this only, vacuoles. And tomorrow I'll be doing the structure and function of the cytoskeleton and its role in motility. This is very, very important topic. So no one will miss this lecture. So if we talk about peroxisome, the name was derived, the name was given by this man, Christian de Duve. This is important because it is asked for 2 marks question. Year is not important, but definitely the name of the scientist is very, very important. Now, if I see this term peroxisome, it has something called as per. Okay, that per has come from this hydrogen peroxide. And that is why Christian Duve has given its name peroxisome because in peroxisome, the main function is they break this hydrogen peroxide. Okay, they break this hydrogen peroxide, and that is why this is called as peroxisome. So sometimes they ask you in analyze questions that why the name is given as peroxisome, and this is asked for 2 marks question, the name of the scientist. Fine. Peroxisomes play a key role in the oxidation. We will see which kind of oxidation is very, very important. Fine. And they help in the biosynthesis of a lipid which is called as the plasmalogens. Very, very important. This is again asked for 2 marks question. Peroxisome is very, very important because it makes this kind of lipid. And suppose if this lipid is not present, what are the consequences? Consequences seen in the patients, we will see in the next slides. Okay, so you should know that this is the thing which is synthesized in peroxisome. A 2 marks question is asked here. Now, one very, very important 4 marks question which comes for analysis portion is that they will give you some of the facts about peroxisomes, and then they will ask you which of the fact is right or which of the fact is wrong. Fine. So in these fact question, this type of statements are always asked. The first is that peroxisomes, they don't have DNA and ribosomes. Very, very important. They don't have their own DNA and ribosomes. Just like your mitochondria and mitochondria and chloroplast, they have their own genome. Okay, and they can make their own proteins. Fine. Some of the proteins are encoded by the nuclear gene, and some of the proteins are encoded by the chloroplast and the mitochondrial gene. But this peroxisome, it has some functions which is similar to the mitochondria and chloroplast, and some functions which are not similar to the mitochondria and chloroplast. So this is a analogous behavior which it is showing that even though mitochondria and chloroplasts have their DNA and ribosomes, but peroxisomes don't have DNA and ribosomes. They don't have. So definitely, whatever the proteins are coming to the peroxisomes from where they will be encoded, all the proteins are encoded by the nuclear genes. All the proteins. So if you see your cell, in that cell, there is a small membrane bound organelle which is called as a peroxisome, and in the cytosol there are ribosomes. So these ribosomes, they will make the proteins and they will send this protein to the peroxisome. So this type of functioning is seen in most of the cells, animal cells and the plant cells both. Okay, not in most, in all of the cell, because peroxisomes don't have their DNA. So where are the genes encoded? This is asked. These are the things which are asked in your analyze question. The genes are encoded with the genes are present on the nucleus. One more thing you should note, they are single membrane bound organelle. One more thing we have learned was single membrane bound, that was lysosome. Because in analyzed questions now they give you it is a double membrane bound organelle, and we miss out this term double. Okay, we missed out, and we look out at other options, and one of the option, if suppose it is given that they have DNA and ribosomes, so we tend to think that okay, it may be having ribosomes, and we will take this one right. But the thing is that this single membrane is not the right option. The double membrane is not the right option. Peroxisomes are single membrane bound organelle. Okay, they are single membrane bound organelle. So keep a note of all these things. Now, if you see a animal cell and a plant cell, can you see here? This is the peroxisome. This is your peroxisome. Peroxisome. This is your peroxisome. Peroxisomes. Okay. And see here, where is the peroxisome present? Peroxisomes are present here. See this, peroxisomes. Okay. So animal and plant, both the cells have this peroxisomes, and in both the types, both the cells, they have specific type of function which is performed in both animal and plant. They have some common function which is performed in both, and in plant cells they have some specific functions which we have to study. In plant cells they have something called as the glycosomes. Okay, glycosomes are nothing but they are specialized peroxisomes. This is a 2 marks question which is asked. Okay, what are glycosomes? They are nothing but they are some specialized peroxisomes. And why they are called as glycoxysomes, we will see why they are called as that. Okay, so you should know that in both plant and animal cells they are present, and they do similar kind of functions also, and they do different functions also. Some specialized functions is also present. Okay. Now, if you see in the electron microscopy, if you want to see the structure of this peroxisomes, now they can be seen as a very large amount of crystal structure. Okay, why they can be seen as that? Very, very important, because they have these two enzymes. One is the catalase enzyme, and the second is the urate oxidase. And this urate, it is a very, very important compound which make crystals. So if the question is asked like this in analyze question, suppose a scientist has found out a new cell, and while analyzing the cell in electron microscopy, he found a highly organized crystal form of small organelles present in the periphery of the cell. So according to you, what may be the organelle? According to you, what may be the function of the organelle? Like this, the question may be asked. If suppose the word is coming the crystal form, the crystal form is shown only, can you see a presence of the crystalloid core? This is only shown by peroxisome because they contain these enzymes, catalase and urate oxidase. As I was telling you, that the name has been come from the word peroxide. Okay, why? Because they are degrading this hydrogen peroxide. And why they are degrading this hydrogen peroxide? Because they are having this enzyme. So name the enzyme which degrades hydrogen peroxide. It is catalase, not peroxidase. Okay, not peroxidase, it is catalase. If the catalase and peroxidase are given, you will be confused because the name is hydrogen peroxide. So most of the time you will think that okay, it may be peroxidase. No, it is catalase. Okay, so these are the 2 marks and the 4 marks question which can be asked. Now, I was telling you that they are similar to mitochondria and chloroplast. Okay, why they are similar? Because they replicate by division. Okay, and why they are dissimilar? Because they do not contain their own genome. But mitochondria and chloroplast, they have their own genome. Okay, they have their own genome. So in this way, they are dissimilar. But why they are similar? Because these peroxisomes can divide. They can replicate by division. Okay, they can replicate. So this can be asked in your analyze question. There, I was telling you now, peroxisomes, some of the facts may be given. So one of the fact may be given will be this. They can replicate by division. So you should not be confused about these things. Definitely they lack their DNA. So all the things will be coming from the, hello, am I audible? Okay, some technical issues are there. Okay. So, okay, Asha. Fine. So the thing is that they can replicate by division. They have their properties by which they can divide and they can make one peroxisomes into two peroxisomes, and how that is depending on what conditions. The condition is that if the cell is generating more amount of hydrogen peroxide, one condition I'm telling you, if suppose the cell is generating lot of this toxin hydrogen peroxide and one peroxisome is not able to manage that, so what this peroxisome will do, they will give the signal to the nucleus that they want. The cell will itself, it will sense that more amount of hydrogen peroxide is present, so automatically nuclear genes will be expressed for this catalase enzyme. And when more amount of this catalase genes is produced, where they be targeted, they will be targeted into the peroxisome. See here, on the free ribosomes, the proteins will be made and they will be transferred, they will be imported into the peroxisomes, they will be transferred, they will be targeted into the peroxisomes. Now suppose this is the small organelle, 0.5 to 1 micrometer, and there are many catalase enzymes which are present. So now there is no space for that peroxisome to function. So now what is the fate of that peroxisome? Definitely, if it is having a lot amount of this enzymes and everything, it will divide. Okay, and one peroxisome will divide into two. And in this way, the peroxisome replication is regulated. So you should know this thing, that all the proteins and everything, the conductor, the mastermind of this peroxisome is the nucleus, not the peroxisome itself, but it is the nucleus. Okay, now as I have told you why the name peroxisome has come, because of this hydrogen peroxide, and why this hydrogen peroxide is very poisonous to the cell, because this hydrogen peroxide now it has the potentiality to generate this oxygen radicals. Okay, and this oxygen radicals actually they are very harmful, because they have the capacity to target all the membrane lipids. They can oxidize these membrane lipids, and once the membrane lipids are not stable, the cell will not be stable. That is why this hydrogen peroxide is very important, that we should remove this hydrogen peroxide from the cell's environment. And there this catalase is coming and showing its role, because this catalase, what it is doing, hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. It is written in the slides, in the upcoming slides it is written. I'm showing you here only. This H2O2 on the acting of this catalase, it will be broken down into H2O and oxygen. Okay, water and oxygen. Now this is not harmful. What is harmful? Harmful is when it is broken down into this kind, or O2 minus radical, or this O2 electrons, like this superoxide radicals or this kind of radicals, if it is generated, then this because these things are unstable, and to get stability, what they will do, they will target this membrane lipids, and that is why these are very, very dangerous to the cell. And what is this catalase doing? This catalase, it is breaking down this hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen, and in this way it is neutralizing the toxicity and providing a safe location. Understood, everyone? Getting the things? Any doubts till now? And as I have told you that they are very, very important in the biosynthesis of a lipid. That lipid is called as the plasmalogens. As the name suggests, it is something to do with the plasma membrane. Now, this lipid has a special characteristic. And what is that characteristic? This question has come into my exam also, plasmalogens. Okay, for 2 marks. What is the characteristic of plasmalogen? Plasmalogens, they are a kind of phospholipid which are having a ether bond. Very, very important. They are having a ether bond rather than a ester bond. Okay. Plasmalogens, they are a kind of phospholipid and they are targeted to the membrane only. They are kind of membrane lipids, and mostly they are present in the neural membranes. Okay, so if suppose this plasmalogens, if it is not synthesized properly, so what will happen? Neurological disease can occur. One of the disease is your Alzheimer disease. Okay, Alzheimer is one of the thing where this plasmalogens, it is not synthesized properly. They are having defects in the synthesis, and so what happens is that there is accumulation of some amino acids and everything, and that is why that degrades the neurons, and so Alzheimer disease is caused. Plus, there is one very, very important syndrome which is happening, is called as the Zellweger syndrome. This has been asked so many times in 2 marks question. Okay, Zellweger syndrome. Zellweger syndrome. Which is the organelle causing this Zellweger syndrome? It is peroxisome. And why this Zellweger syndrome is caused? Because there is defect in the synthesis and transport of the proteins. Okay, the proteins which are actually encoded by this nuclear genes. So once the protein have been made, where they will be located? They will be located in the cytosol. Okay, because they are the proteins which are made on the free ribosomes which are present on the cytoplasm. So once they are prepared, after they have been come into their stable form or in their 3D structure, they have to be targeted to the peroxisome, because in that cytosol environment, that enzyme will not be active. Suppose if I'm talking about the catalase, okay, it has to go into the peroxisome to show its function. And if suppose by any mutation on the peroxisome or in this catalase, if this is not entering the peroxisome, there is a syndrome. Okay, and that syndrome is called Zellweger syndrome. So what is the actually cause? The cause is there is impairment in the synthesis and transport of protein. This is the cause. Okay, it is not like that peroxisome is not functioning properly. That is the ultimate consequence. But the thing is that the proteins which have to be targeted to these peroxisomes, they are not properly synthesized and they are not properly enrooted to this peroxisome. So you have to remember the difference between this. Okay, what the consequence? That peroxisome is not functioning. Why it is not functioning? Because there is some upcoming event which is happening, and because of that upcoming event, this syndrome is there. What is the relation between proteins and Ignat? What is the relation between proteins and peroxisome, ma'am? Yes, I will tell you. In the upcoming slide, you will see the figures. Okay, in that you will understand. But very, very, very basic, Asha, if I tell you, suppose this catalase enzyme, what is this catalase enzyme? It is an enzyme. So finally, if you are opening this enzyme structure, what it will be? It will be a protein only. And where this protein has been synthesized? This protein has been synthesized in the cytosol. because the genes, as I have already mentioned, the genes are present in the nucleus. Okay, now see here. This catalase enzyme, actually this is a protein, and this protein, if it is a protein, it has been made from the amino acid, but it has been made in the cytosol, and from where the target has come, from where the signal has come, from the nucleus. Okay, so finally this catalase, it is present in the cytoplasm of the cell. So from the cytoplasm, if the peroxisome is present here, so from the cytoplasm, this catalase has to be transferred to the peroxisome. Then only this catalase will function, na? And understanding, Asha. So this catalase, if it is present in the cytosol, it has no function. What it will do? For its functioning and for everything, it need a proper ambient environment. That environment is provided by this peroxisome. So this catalase has to be transferred here. So suppose now there are two conditions. This catalase is having some mutation. So if peroxisome is proper, here is the single membrane bound. So there may be gates present here, because anything which has to come inside and go outside, they have to cross this membrane. Every time we are targeting about this, we are telling about this, what you call this importing or the transfer of the proteins. You should always know that there is a membrane which they have to cross. The X molecule has to cross. Suppose this X molecule here is the catalase. If it is having some mutation, so definitely it will not having the signal to go to this peroxisome. What are those signals? We will read. Okay, we will read this. So it will not go into the catalase. So this catalase will not go into the peroxisome. If the catalase is not present, H2O2, H2O2 will it be degraded? No, it will not be degraded. And what it will lead to? It will lead to the toxification of the cell. And see, this is a syndrome. Syndrome means it is a collection of diseases. Anything can happen. Many primary diseases can also happen, and many secondary diseases can also happen. So this is one of the thing. This is one of the way the proteins are linked with this peroxisome. Are you getting this, Asha? Okay. Now see here. So there is defects in their biosynthesis, and because of these defects, the disorders occur. And what are the name of the disorders? Zellweger syndrome and this rhizomelic chondrodysplasia punctuata. This just remember this. I have never seen any question on this, but having any extra knowledge is not harmful. So you can just remember this, okay, that because of the peroxisomal disorders, these are the two kinds of syndromes which is happening. This is very, very important. Zellweger's. Okay, Zellweger's has been asked many times. Okay, now as I was telling you, just now I was explaining you, Asha. See, there will be mutations in the genes. So if they are encoding the enzymes or some transport protein, they will not be targeted to the peroxisome. And that is why this is happening. Now, what is happening in this Zellweger syndrome? What is happening is that, hello, Zellweger syndrome, what is happening? These are the ions. These are the ions which are accumulating. Copper, iron, fatty acid, these are all accumulating in the blood, liver, brain, kidney. And because of this, suppose if there is mutation in the genetic conditions, only there are mutation. So the baby, if it is having this Zellweger syndrome, he will be having impaired vision and hearing. And see here, so many conditions he will be facing. So most infants with the Zellweger syndrome do not live beyond 1 year because of this all complexities. And why these complexities are happening? Just a small organelle, 0.5 micrometer organelle is not functioning properly. And the thing is that it is not having its own DNA also, and then also it is having so potent effect on the person or on the living beings. So it is very, very important to study each and everything. Okay, if I'm telling you peroxisome, it is not important. No, how it is not important? It is contributing a very important role in the cell's behavior, in the cell's viability. Fine. And if peroxisome is not there, I think, see here, what is the condition? The condition is very dreadful. Okay, so just have a knowledge of this. Nothing to remember here, but you can remember this point at least. Fine. Okay, now let's see the functions of the peroxisomes. The first function, as we have already discussed, the enzyme catalase enzyme. So now if I ask you what is the function of the catalase enzyme in only one sentence, what is its function? Tell me what it will do. Right. It degrades H2O2. So this is its very, very important function, and the very first function, because the name has been derived from there only. The second important thing, and very, very important thing, it is helpful in breaking down this fatty acids. Now, one thing you should know that from if suppose we are getting energy, the first source of getting energy is carbohydrate. Okay, carbohydrate. If suppose we are on a starving condition and we are not taking carbohydrate from a longer time, then what will happen? Our body metabolism will be turned, our body metabolism will change, and now they will start degrading this fatty tissues. Okay, these adipose tissues. So these adipose tissues are definitely a storehouse of energy, but they are not utilized until carbohydrates are present, and ultimately carbohydrates, they are being transferred into this fatty acids only. Okay, carbohydrates, they are being converted into this fatty tissues and they are stored in the liver. Everyone is getting some message. I'm audible to everyone. Can you hear me? Hello. Okay, fine. Because I'm getting continuous some messages. Fine, okay. So fatty acids will be broken down. Yes, right, Mansa. Yes, there was a dialog box. So fatty acids are the secondary things. But where these fatty acids are broken down, they are broken down into peroxisomes. Very, very important. One important term which you should know here is the beta oxidation. Okay, what is beta oxidation? Beta oxidation is the fatty acids, they are broken down and energy is generated from there. That term is called as beta oxidation, and you will study this in your biochemistry. Okay, but here you should know the term is beta oxidation, and beta oxidation takes place in the organelle which is called as peroxisome. Only you should remember only this thing, this much for this peroxisome, that fatty acids are oxidized in the peroxisome. Now there is one more organelle where it is oxidized. It is oxidized in mitochondria also. But if you talk about the plants, fatty acid oxidation is restricted only to peroxisome. So if we talk about humans, it is both peroxisomes and mitochondria. But if we are talking about plants, specialized function is there, which is called as the peroxisome. And since the plants, they have a specialized function, that is why the peroxisomes, which are doing this fatty acid oxidation, they are called as glyoxysomes. Very, very important 2 marks question. Okay, very, very important 2 marks question, because these are the specialized peroxisome where this fatty oxidation takes place, and this is only and only in plants. Okay, glyoxysomes are not present in animal cells, not present. They are present, sorry, they are present only and only in the animal cells. Sorry, only and only in the plant cells. Fine. Then one more thing is that in animal cell, this cholesterol and dolicol, this is again a kind of membrane bound body. We will study about this in the future classes, but just remember here that cholesterol is synthesized in the peroxisome. Okay, definitely one of the main site for this cholesterol synthesis is endoplasmic reticulum, but it is synthesized in the peroxisomes also. So from here, what are the 4 points you have to remember? The first one, the catalase activity. The second one, beta oxidation. The third one, glycoxysomes. And the fourth one, the cholesterol metabolism. That's it. Finish. Okay. Now see here. If I talk about this catalase activity, see this H2O2 in the presence of the catalase, it is converting into H2O and oxygen. This is the structure of your plasmalogen. These are not being asked, but just I have shown you. Now see this structure, see this. This is happening in the plant, the glycoxylate cycle. Okay, now this is happening in your plants. Okay, the glycoxy. So this cycle you will study in your biochemistry portion, and this is very important cycle. And how this is important now, we will study in peroxisome only. I'll do that part here only, so that if you miss that part in the biochemistry portion also, you will remember here. Fine. So what is happening here? The fatty acids are entering into the cycle, the citrate cycle, and finally what is removed? The glucose. The glucose is removed, and you know glucose is the energy from where the cells are getting the energy to metabolize. This is the readable form of the energy which is present to the cell, but from where it is derived? It is derived from the fatty acids. And this is a very characteristic thing which is present in the germinating seeds. Okay, very, very important. This is present in the germinating seeds. When the seeds are present, what is happening in that seed? Direct form of any glucose is not there, because they are in the dormant stage. Okay, the seeds, what are there, what you sow in the soil, they are in the dormant form. So in that dormant form, what is present? They are having this fatty acids. Okay, they are having this fatty acids. And when you are putting this seed into the soil and you start giving water, and once the signaling has started that okay, now the seeds are able to germinate, what will start? This glycoxylate cycle will start, and they will break down this fatty acid and they will make this glucose, so that the seeds are getting readable form of energy from this glucose, and they start germinating. So this is a very important cycle which is happening in the germinating seeds. Okay, in the germinating seeds, mark the words, they are it is happening in the germinating seed. Now one very important function of this peroxisome is this. Okay, what I was talking about. Now see here. Suppose chloroplast, in the chloroplast, you know that this photosynthesis is happening. Now in the photosynthesis, actually what you get these 3-phosphoglycerate. Okay, you get this 3-phosphoglycerate. And how you are getting this 3-phosphoglycerate? With the help of this Rubisco enzyme. Okay, you are having this 3-phosphoglycerate with the help of this Rubisco enzyme. Rubisco is one of the protein which is the largest amount of protein present on earth. A 2 marks question. It is asked in your IIT JAMS and GATE and IISc. Which is the abundant form of protein which is present on earth? It is Rubisco. Okay, it is Rubisco, and Rubisco are present in the plant. And what they are doing? They are doing this phosphoglycerate. They are making this 3-phosphoglycerate. And what is the ultimate thing which you should get? You should get the ATP. Why? In the plant, this Kelvin cycle is happening. Okay, in the chloroplast, this Kelvin cycle is happening. And why this Kelvin cycle is happening? Because they need this ATP and NADH. okay, and NADPH. They need this because from this they will get their energy. Fine. And what is the important thing of the photosynthesis? They are taking carbon dioxide. Okay, they are taking carbon dioxide and they are releasing oxygen. Fine. This is photosynthesis. If I tell you in one sentence, carbon dioxide is taken in, and with the help of this water and everything, they are making this glucose, and oxygen is the byproduct which we are getting from the photosynthesis. But this Rubisco enzyme, it has like hemoglobin. If we talk about then hemoglobin, what is the affinity of hemoglobin? Hemoglobin binds with the oxygen molecule. Okay, but what happens sometimes is that it does not bind with oxygen, but it will bind with the carbon dioxide. It happens, right? Hemoglobin can turn into carboxyhemoglobin. So the same thing is happening with this Rubisco enzyme also. Suppose if by some chance carbon dioxide level has come down and oxygen level has got up in the cell, now this Rubisco enzyme will take oxygen. It will bind oxygen. If it was binding with carbon dioxide, it was giving this thing 3-phosphoglycerate as the byproduct, and this phosphoglycerate will ultimately yield this ATP and NADPH. But now, since this Rubisco enzyme is not binding with carbon dioxide, but it has binded with oxygen, what we are getting? We are getting a waste product which is called as phosphoglycolate. Very, very important. We are getting a waste product which is called as phosphoglycolate. Now, suppose in plants, if there is some carbon dioxide deficient condition and there is lot amount of oxygen present, so what will happen to those plants? If the Rubisco is taking only oxygen, the plant will definitely die, because now this photosynthesis has been turned into something which is called as photorespiration. Something which is called as photorespiration, and photorespiration is a wasteful thing for the plants. Okay, because what is happening? They are taking oxygen and they are releasing carbon dioxide. That is why it is called as photorespiration. They are taking oxygen and they are releasing carbon dioxide. Just like us, we are taking oxygen and we are giving out carbon dioxide. So for us it is a useful thing, but for plants it is not a useful thing. It is a waste for plant, because they cannot generate this ATP and NADPH. So if this kind of condition is arising, who comes to the savior? Who is the savior? The savior is your peroxisome. Okay, the savior is peroxisome. Now, two things you have to remember here is that first, what is the byproduct? Phosphoglycolate. And what is the number of this number? How many carbons are present in this phosphoglycolate? It is 2 carbons. Okay, it is 2 carbons, because this phosphoglycerate, it is actually a 3 carbon product, and 3 carbon product are only converted and taken into the Calvin cycle, and they are metabolized and ATP and NADPH are generated. But what is happening here? Phosphoglycolate is coming, which is a 2 carbon compound, and it is a wasteful product. So now how this peroxisome save the plants? So let's see it from the diagram. Just to make the background, I have read it from here, but we will see this with the diagram. See, now this is your chloroplast. Okay, now Calvin cycle is happening, and this Rubisco, it has given this 2,3-phosphoglycerate. But what is actually it is taking? It is taking carbon dioxide. Okay, then only this cycle will go, and then only you will get this ATP and NADPH. But if it is the oxygen which has been taken by this Rubisco enzyme, what you are getting? You are getting this phosphoglycolate. Now this phosphoglycolate, as it is a wasteful product, this chloroplast does not need this. So this chloroplast, what it will do? Calvin cycle, definitely it will not function. It will shut down. So this phosphoglycolate will be changed into glycolate. and this glycolate will go into the peroxisome. Okay, this glycolate will go into the peroxisome, and in the peroxisome, this glycolate will be converted into glycine. Very, very important. You have to mark in which organelle which thing is generated, because this is asked in your 4 marks and in your 2 marks. In both the places this is asked. Okay, see, in the peroxisome, this glycolate is converted into glycine, and this glycine is then transferred into the mitochondria, and this glycine is converted into serine. This serine is again transferred back to the peroxisome. So the peroxisome is like a bank. Okay, you are depositing something, and in return you are getting the interest. Who are depositing? The depositors are the chloroplast and the mitochondria. Chloroplast is depositing glycolate, and what in return it is getting? See, it is getting the glycerate. And what this mitochondria is depositing? Mitochondria is depositing the serine. So what is happening? This peroxisome, the glycolate is converted into this glycine. Glycine is moved back to the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, glycine is converted into serine, and this serine is again coming back to the peroxisome. Serine is converted into glycerate. Now this glycerate can go into the Calvin cycle, and it will start again the Calvin cycle. So a wasteful product is now changed into a useful product, and the Calvin cycle is started again. So this peroxisome is very, very important in increasing the efficiency of the C3 plants. Okay, if these peroxisomes are not present, definitely the efficiency will go down, because if somehow this oxygen level is coming up, the whole cycle will stop, and the plant will shut down. The plant will collapse. Fine. So here the peroxisomes are coming and saving the plants, and they are starting this Calvin cycle again. So what type of question is asked? The question is asked that they will give you the name of the the name of the organelle, and they will ask you in what way, or in which of the products are synthesized in this direction. So suppose it is CPM. Okay, CPM, chemistry, physics, maths. What is CPM? Chloroplast, peroxisome, mitochondria, and in this direction, what you are getting? GGS. That is glycolate, glycine, and serine. Okay, you have to remember this. You have to remember this. In chloroplast, you are getting glycolate. This glycolate is coming to the peroxisome. You are getting glycine. Glycine is going to the mitochondria. It is converted to the serine. That means serine is made in mitochondria. Serine is made in mitochondria. This serine is again coming back to the glycerate, and this glycerate is going back to the chloroplast. Everyone getting this cycle? This is very, very, very important. Everyone, tell me, have you understood this? Others? Mansa, Asha, Priyama? Priyama, you were late, but did you understood this? Mavnia. Okay, Anagha. Everyone got this point. Okay, so here you have to remember the organelle and its end product. I was telling you about the assembly, that if suppose many enzymes are present in one small peroxisome, what this peroxisome will do? This peroxisome will ultimately divide. So how is this happening? So what are happening? The proteins which are made to this peroxisomes, they are made on the ribosomes. You should remember this thing. For all the proteins which are targeted to this peroxisomes, they are made on the free cytosolic ribosomes. Write this word in your notebook: free cytosolic ribosomes. Okay, the ribosomes which are freely present in the cytosol, they will make these proteins. Okay, they will make these proteins, and then these proteins are then targeted to your peroxisome. See, the proteins are made, they are imported to the peroxisome. Now the peroxisome will grow and the peroxisome will divide. So without any DNA, without anything, the peroxisomes are dividing just like your mitochondria and chloroplast, which is a very important role and very unique role which is shown by this peroxisomes. Fine. Now, a very important part, and analytical questions are coming from this part. Now, I was telling you the proteins are imported. The proteins are imported. Every time I was using this word, but how? How the proteins are imported? Because every time we have studied this. For going to an organelle, they should have something to carry. Okay, because the cytosol is so big. Okay, for the cell it is so big, and at one place of the cytosol this ribosome was present, and on that this peroxisome protein has been made. But now how this protein knows that it has to go to this direction? Where is the peroxisome? How it will locate that? Okay, so that targeting, that thing, that how it is going to the peroxisome, that is given by a signal sequence. If that signal sequence is present on that protein, ultimately the protein knows that it has to go to the peroxisome only, and that signal is called as the peroxisome translocation signal. Okay, or peroxisome targeted signal, PTS signal. Okay, PTS signal. A very important signal is, you should remember this, SKL, short form SKL, because in this way the questions are asked. In this way the questions are asked that what is the targeting signal, or SKL encoded proteins are targeted to which organelle. SKL means serine, lysine, leucine. This is a single letter coding for that, serine, lysine, leucine, SKL. If SKL is present, and with every organelle now you will have this kind of coding. So make a list of this coding, and which with code it is going to which organelle, you should remember that, because sometimes in 4-mark question they will give you a match the column, and they will give you different kinds of this one letter coding, and in front of that you will be given the organelle's name, and you will be asked to match that which code will give rise to which organelle, ultimately where it will be located. So first is your this SKL. If SKL is present, it is targeted to the peroxisome. This is the first signal. Okay, PTS. And the second one is a conserved sequence of 9 amino acid, which is present at the amino terminus. And this SKL, it is present at the carboxy terminus. You know that the amino acid, they are having the two ends. The first end is your carboxy terminus, and the second end is the amino terminus. So it is ultimately left to the protein that where the signal will be made, at the carboxy terminus end or at the amino terminus end. Mostly it is made at the carboxy terminus end, and this is a highly conserved sequence which has been shown in many of the organisms, the SKL sequence. Okay, and if this SKL sequence is present, ultimately it will go and land into the peroxisome. And the second sequence is your 9 amino acid sequence. The amino acids names are not important, and it is not given also. You just remember that it is a sequence of 9 amino acids. That's it. Fine. So if these two sequences are present, ultimately they will go into the peroxisome. Now, to take into the peroxisome, this is a chaperone, okay, because the proteins are maybe in the folded form. So if they are coming into the cytosol, different areas of the cytosol, there is a chance that they can get into the misfolded configuration, or they can unfold, something mishap can happen. So this HSP70, it is called as a chaperone, and the chaperone function is that they will protect proteins. They will protect this protein and they will bring it to the peroxisome. Now the signal is there. Okay, PTS1 signal is there, and this HSP70 is the cargo, the taxi who is bringing this. Now at the peroxisome, there is one guard who will look, okay, you are the right person, so come in. So what is that guard? The guard is called as the peroxins. And for the PTS1 and for the PTS2, there are different guards. It is just like that. One building has two entrance point, and at the two entrance point there are two guards. So you have to show your identity card to them. So if it is PTS1, the guard is 5, Pux 5, that is the Paroxin 5. And if the signal is PTS2, it is the Pux 7. Can you remember this? You are not confused, right? You're not confused? Everyone. If it is PTS, everyone. One, so how you will write in your notebook? SKL, first of peroxisome, then arrow SKL, then arrow Pux 5. Finish. What are PTS1 and PTS2? They are peroxisome targeting signals. Peroxisome targeting signals. Okay, you are confused. Okay, I'll tell you again. See, in very simple words. This is your peroxisome. Okay, this is your peroxisome. And here was your ribosomes. Okay, here is your ribosome. Here the protein has been synthesized. Now this protein has come into its configuration. And now how it will know that it has to go to this peroxisome? Because now see, this is one end of the protein, this is other end. Suppose this is carboxy end and this is the amino end. Okay, this is C end, this is N end. So at this carboxy end, there is SKL amino acid, which was from where this information has come, from the nucleus. From the nucleus, the information has come. No. Yes, Asha, right. Yes, you are right. So from the nucleus, they have given the signal that the genes for this peroxisome has to be made. So now this ribosome has made this protein. So at its carboxy end, it is having this SKL signal. Now this knows that it has to go to the peroxisome. This SKL signal is like an address. Where it has to go? It has to go to the peroxisome. So there is a protein called as HSP70. Okay, what this HSP70 will do? To protect this protein from the environment of the cell, it will hold this protein and it will bring it to the peroxisome. Otherwise, if this protein is roaming here and there and going to this peroxisome, there are chances that the protein can misfold. But we want the protein in the active state. So this HSP70 called as the chaperone. Okay, it is called as a chaperone or a chaperone. So it will hold this HSP70, hold this protein, it will protect this protein and it will bring it to the peroxisome. Now it has come to the gate, but to enter inside, it is having this mark SKL, but someone should be here to check now that okay, SKL is present, so okay, come inside. You will not open the gate for everyone. You will first ask his identity. You will see from the peeping hole. And if suppose you see any unknown person, definitely you will ask the identity. So the same thing here. There is a membrane protein called as the peroxin protein, and the name of the peroxin protein is 5. Now, how this name is given is that on the basis of their finding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the number was given, because they are the different types of the receptor proteins of the peroxin receptor. So this SKL signal, which is called as the peroxisome targeting signal 1, it will be recognized by this peroxin 5 and it will give this protein entry. Okay, now suppose the condition is that here the signal is not present, but at the amino terminus, the 9 amino acid signal is present. Okay, now this peroxisome 5, it cannot recognize this because it is uniquely made to recognize this SKL signals. It can recognize only this SKL signals. But if suppose there is a target protein present at the N terminus, now the destination is the same, peroxisome, but there is another import receptor called as the PUX7. it will recognize, okay, this is our known member, so give him the entry, so give her the entry, so they will enter inside. Now it's is it fine now, everyone? Did you get the things, or again you are confused? Anaka, Hema? It's very easy. Okay, it's very easy. You just have to now make a flow chart. Okay, just a one single line flow chart. This whole 2 pages of this 2 slides can be just written in a single line. That is SKL. How you remember this? You have to remember, first write peroxisome. Okay, then make 2 arrows. First arrow is SKL. Pux 5. Finish. Then second arrow is 9-amino acid, and here write down it is at the carboxy terminus. It is at the amino terminus. 9-amino acid. Pux 7. Finish. Whenever you see this, you will remember the things. Okay. Fine. Now I was telling you about this Zellweger syndrome, and we were discussing that why this Zellweger syndrome is happening, because there is mutations in the genes and the targeting. The proteins which are made in the cytoplasm, they are not able to go into the peroxisome, and that is why there is empty peroxisome present. The peroxisomes are empty, okay, and that is why there is severe abnormalities. Now why there is this emptiness? What is the role, and how, what is the actual reason for that? The reason is that there is mutation in the peroxine gene, which is called as the PUX2. Okay, PUX2, and this PUX2 is very, very important, because it helps in. Now see, this numbering is given on the basis of the location and how it was recognized. So this is present mainly in the brain. Okay, this type of the peroxine is present mainly in the brain, and this PUX2 is mutated, and that is why this Zellweger syndrome is caused. Just you have to remember the name of this PUX2. What is the import protein which is mutated in the Zellweger syndrome? PUX2. Nothing more you have to remember. Okay, only the name of this receptor. And this also will be asked in your 4-mark analysis type. They will give you a big long experiment like thing, or the conditions of the disease they will give you, and they will ask you how it was caused. Fine. Okay, so we have discussed all of these things. We have discussed. You can read these things. See, these are the glycoxysomes, okay, which are present in the plant. The glycoxysome, which are the specialized peroxisomes present only in the plants. See the peroxisome, see the crystallized structure. And why this crystallized structure is present? Because of the presence of the ureate and the catalase. Okay. Now come to this vacuoles. Now the vacuoles is a very small portion, but 2 to 3 things are very, very important, and only 2 to 3 questions are asked from here. The first is that what is a vacuole? Vacuole is a large fluid filled vesicle. Okay, they are vesicles. This thing is very, very important, that they are vesicles. And in plants, what happens is that now these vacuoles are very, very large, and they push the nucleus to one side. They will push the nucleus. But in animal cell, these vacuoles are very, very small. Okay, the vacuoles are very, very small. But in plants, the vacuoles are very, very large. And when you see this figure, just a second. When you see this figure, now see here, now see, now see this, these are the vesicles, okay, these are the vacuoles, these are the vacuoles where the things are stored. So what is a vacuole? Vacuole is some empty spaces, okay, where you can store the things. It is like a plastic bag, a bag. Suppose you have gone to the market and you have bought so many things, so to keep that things in a place, you need some plastic bags or some carry bags. So it is like a carry bag where you can dump the things. So these are the empty spaces which the cells keep, because if something extra comes in the cell, where it will store? It will store into these vacuoles. Okay, if you see the actual morphology of the vacuole, at the end, at the periphery, there is something which is called as the tonoplast. Okay, now what is tonoplast? That is asked for 2 marks. Tonoplast is not the cytoplasm of the vacuole. You have to know this. The cytoplasm of the vacuole is called as the cell sap. Okay, it is called as the sap, and the tonoplast is actually a single liner which is present on the periphery of the vacuole. That is called as the tonoplast. And this, see, this is a central vacuole which is present mostly in the plants, the central vacuole. Otherwise, if you see in the animal, it is the small vacuoles which are dispersed in the whole animal cell. But when you see in the plants, it is located at the center, and it is pushing this nucleus at the side. So what is tonoplast? Tonoplast, the single membrane is called as the tonoplast. So this question is asked for 2 marks. In your IIT JAM also this question has been asked. Okay, what is the tonoplast? And by looking at this, we confused that it is the cytoplasm of the vacuole. No, it is not the cytoplasm of the vacuole. It is actually the covering. The single membrane which is present on the vacuole is called as the tonoplast. The tonoplast, this and the inside of this is called as the cell sap. What is the pH of this cell sap? It is acidic. Just like the lysosome, the vacuoles also have an acidic pH. And wherever this pH question comes now, that it is having an acidic pH, directly your brain should divert to this thing, H plus proton pump. Okay, without this pump, acidic pH cannot be generated. Okay, we have studied this in lysosome. H plus proton pump is present on the vacuole also, which is maintaining this acidic pH. Okay, which is maintaining this acidic pH. And what is the cell sap containing here? Cell sap is dissolved with ions, acid, sugars, enzymes, secondary metabolites. As I have told you, that it is a place where it will store everything which is extra present. Okay, but this thing, this you should know that this acidic pH is only because of this H plus proton pump. Okay, and there is something which is called as a contractile vacuole. This is asked for your 2 marks question. Okay, this is asked for your 2 marks question. That what is a contractile vacuole? Contractile vacuole is specifically for this osmoregulation. Just one word you have to remember. It is specifically for the osmoregulation, and this contractile vacuole is present in the lower forms of the animals, paramecium, amoeba, chlamydomonas, and everything. And what is the role there? They will pump out the water because they want to maintain the internal environment in this protista and algae. The paramecium, amoeba, and they are having this contractile vacuole. And only one word you have to remember, the function is the osmoregulation. That means they will pump out the excess water out of the cell, and they will maintain its osmoregulation. Fine, everyone getting the things. This is easy, vacuoles. No rocket science here. Okay, so what is the function? The function is first the storage. You can read this because I have explained this. And see, I was telling you about this proton motive force. So proton motive force also you all know now. Now, one function is the Turgor pressure, as I was talking about that what is there, what this vacuoles are having inside them, and how it is contributing to the cell's stable behavior. So this vacuole, some of the vacuoles, they are stored with water. Okay, they are filled with this water molecule, and when they are having this water molecule, suppose this is my cell. Okay, and in this cell there are small vacuoles present, okay, which are present here. Now these are the empty spaces which are filled with water. Now this water is placing pressure on this cell wall of this vacuole, and ultimately this pressure is ultimately transferred to the cell wall of the cell. Because of this pressure, because of this water filled environment, a Turgor pressure is created because of the small vacuoles, and because of that this cell is having its original structure. It is very fresh, like the spinach. When you are bringing it from the market, it is so turgid. Okay, why it is turgid, why it is so fresh? Because the water molecules are present, the vacuoles which are present, they are filled with water molecules, and that is why they are creating a pressure on the boundary of the cell. That is why they are making the cells shape very intact. As and when you are keeping it, the dehydration occurs and they are losing the water molecule, and that is why the now it is becoming stale and all the Turgor pressure is lost. So the important role of this vacuole is in creating the Turgor pressure. Just in one line you have to remember, only this thing will be asked, that what are the functions, and the functions will be given and you will be asked to mark out which is right and which is wrong. Endocytosis and exocytosis, as we have seen here, see, these are the food particles, and we have studied what is phagocytosis, what is pinocytosis, what is endocytosis. We have studied in the lysosome portion, and we will study endocytosis and everything again with the important molecules involved in that. In this portion only we will have to study that. Okay, but that is a separate portion and we will deal it on another day. But see here, these are the food particles and they are being captured into some places. Okay, now these places are what? These are the endocytic vesicle. Okay, these are actually vacuoles only, because these are the empty spaces where these food particles are captured or phagocytosed. And this phagocytic molecule or this endocytic vesicle, ultimately then they are fused with this lysosomes. And from where the lysosomes are coming, I have discussed this with you. They are budding from the Golgi. Okay, see the end. From the end, the lysosomes are budding out. Okay, so after this empty space is created and there is something like food particles inside, the lysosomes will merge with this and then they will degrade. So ultimately, what is its function? Endocytosis. Okay, endocytosis. And the other function is secretory vacuoles. Okay, there are something called as secretory vacuoles. Suppose the cell want to make the extracellular matrix. Okay, we will study the cell junction portion, where you will learn about how one cell is binded with the other cell. Okay, in very simple words, it is something like gum. Okay, gum which is holding one cell with the other cell. So this gum is actually made in the cell and then it is secreted out of the cell. So who will carry those gum? They are carried by these vacuoles and they are called as secretory vesicles. Okay, they will carry this gum portion and they will be released out of the cell, and out of the cell they will release all these gums, all these glue particles outside, and the one cell will stick with the other cell. So it can take the things from outside to inside, which is called as endocytosis, and it can release the things from inside to outside, which is called as exocytosis, though they are called as the secretory vesicles. Everyone got the point? And there are some other functions which are called as the specialized vacuoles. Now, in this specialized vacuoles, what is happening? They are storing the lipid molecules. Very, very important. They are called as the adipocyte molecules. Okay, adipose cells. No, both. Asha, both endocytosis and exocytosis. Endo is inside and exo is outside. Endocytosis, you get endocytic vesicles, and exocytosis, you get secretory vesicles because they are secreted out. That is why they are called as secreted. Very good example is your tears. Okay, tears are what? They are a kind of secretory vesicles. In your eyes, what is happening? These are stored in the secretory vesicle form. And when from your brain, when you get the signal of crying, you start crying, and ultimately how it is seen? It is seen in the form of the tears, which is coming out in the secretory vesicle form. It is a kind of exocytosis. Okay, and that tears is having so many enzymes and everything. So what is one of the function? It is cleaning your eye, so it is a kind of secretory vesicle. Okay. So one other function is that vacuoles are storing this fat molecule, the fat cells. They are also a vacuole. Okay, they are also a vacuole. And when you see this symbiotic organisms, okay, symbiotic organism like this polyps. Now, what these polyps are doing? They are eating this algae. Okay, they are eating this algae, and they are actually eating this, but they are not digesting the algae. Why they are not digesting? Because this algae are protected and stored in the vacuoles. And what is happening in the symbiotic condition? This algae, it has a photosynthetic behavior. So ultimately, algae will photosynthesize and it will produce food for this polyps, and polyps, they are protecting the algae in the form of the vacuoles. So in the symbiotic organism also, there is a function of this vacuole. They are storing this endocytic, whatever is the endocytosed material. Here it is the algae, and algae is contributing oxygen and nutrients to the coral, and coral is contributing protection to the algae. Fine. Now let's come to a small topic, but a very, very important topic, and this is the last portion, vesicle fusion. Now, as we were telling about the secretory vesicles, so how these secretory vesicles are binding with the membrane, how these secretory vesicles are fusing, that is a very, very important thing which you should know. Okay, and this question is coming for your 4 marks, for your 2 marks. This question is very, very important in IT JAM, in JNU, everywhere this vesicle fusion question is asked. Okay, and what is important thing which you have to remember is that only that much you will remember. Other things, just forget that. Okay, in this only a mechanism is given. You just have to remember that mechanism. The first thing is that the vesicle fusion was given by a scientist which is called as the Rothman. Okay, and he has given a hypothesis called as a snare hypothesis. Remember this word. Okay, remember this word. It is called as a snare hypothesis. Snare hypothesis. Remember this word. Now, there are two things. Whenever a vesicle has to fuse, two things have to be happening. Only in that condition, the vesicles will fuse. The first thing is that the vesicle should recognize where it has to bind the target membrane. Okay, only in that condition it will fuse with the membrane. So the first thing is that it has to recognize the target membrane, and the second thing is that fusion. Okay, these are the two things. The two things, the first thing is recognition, the second is the fusion, and this hypothesis is called as the snare hypothesis, which was given by the Rothman. Okay, Now let's see what is this Snare hypothesis and how it is acting. Now there are two things. There are two things here. One is the vesicle and one is the target membrane. On the basis of that, the name is given V snare and T snare. T means it is present on the target membrane and V means it is present on the vesicle. So there has to be a locking system between these two. Between the V snare and T snare, there has to be a locking system. Only then this vesicle will fuse with the target membrane. Let's see with the help of the exam, with the diagram. There you will understand it better. Now see here. This is your membrane. Okay, this is your target membrane. Now here, inside the cell, this vesicle has been made. Okay, and it is carrying some secretory compound which it has to secrete out of the cell. Now this vesicle, it should know that I have to go and bind to this membrane, this target membrane I have to bind. How it will know that? It will know because it is having a receptor on it. This is called as the receptor. Okay, this is the receptor, which is called as the VAMP receptor. It is present on the vesicle. It is called as the VAMP receptor. The name is synaptobrevin, specifically for the brain we are studying. Okay, specifically for the brain, because in the brain there are many secretory things which are going on, like your glutamate or your neurotransmitters. So how this neurotransmitter vesicle will fuse, we will see that. So suppose this is your secretory vesicle which is having this glutamate. So now it has to fuse with this with your presynaptic membrane. So what is present on this vesicle? There is a receptor which is called as a VAMP receptor. And this VAMP receptor will go and locate another receptor which is present on the membrane, which is called as the syntaxin receptor. Synaptobrevin is present on the vesicle and syntaxin is present on the target membrane. Remember this name. Just be clear with this figure and everything will be done. Okay, and this 3 slides, it's nothing, but if you remember this, if you understand this figure now, it's very easy. So there is a receptor which is called as the synaptobrevin, and on the membrane there is a receptor called as the syntaxin. Now this and this have a zipper like form. Okay, they both of them, it is like a zip. Okay, so when this membrane is coming here, it will zip this form like this. Zipper is there. Okay, and one more protein is present which is called as the SNAP25. Okay, a SNAP25 protein is there. Now, what is the role of this SNAP25? This SNAP25 help in the locking. Help in locking. First, the synaptobrevin and syntaxin, they will see the structure like crisscross. So they will hold in this crisscross form. Both will hold, which is called as a nucleation first. They will hold. And then the SNAP25, see the location. SNAP25 is present on the membrane. Okay, see the location, because location is asked in your exam. Where is the location of SNAP25? On the vesicle, on the target, both or none. It is asked like that. So you should know where it is present. It is present on the target membrane. It will help in the locking. Once it is locked, now a very important protein will come, which is called as the RAB protein. Very, very important protein. Word will be here. Wait. Let's see. It is called as the RAB protein. RAB. Very, very important. Very, very important. RAB protein. Okay. RAB protein is very, very important for the vesicle fusion. So the question is asked, what is the role of RAB? Whenever this word RAB is coming, RAB means fusion. RAB means fusion. What is the fusion? Fusion of vesicle. Okay, fusion of vesicle. You should remember this. This is asked in your 2 marks question. Okay, so there is this protein called as the RAB protein. And what happens is that The RAB protein is actually present in the cytosol, and it is freely available in the cytosol. And when it is inactive, it is binded with the GDP. RAB is binded with the GDP. Here there is no mention of RAB, but you should remember this. Okay, there is protein, RAB protein, okay, which is binded with the GDP. When it is binded with this GDP, it is in the inactive form. But as soon as this zippering is done, this RAB protein is activated because this GDP is cleaved, and now what is binded? GTP is bounded. Okay, GTP is bounded with this. Now this RAB GTP is an active form, and what this RAB GTP will do, this RAB GTP will come here and it will give the energy because it is having this GTP. It is like a adapter protein. Okay, it is like a effector. What is the effect of this? The effect of this RAB GTP is that there is fusion like this. The fusion will occur. And what is helping in this fusion? This RAB GTP is helping in this fusion. Okay, this RAB GTP is a inactive form, but when it is bounded with this GTP, there is a fusion here, and when the fusion occurs, what will happen? All the secretory vesicles, all the things which are present here will be secreted out. The function is over. The function is done. Okay, now what is the next thing? The next thing is that this vesicle has to be removed, because again it has to do its function. It is an empty space which is present in the body, in the cell body. So again it will be filled with something. So it has to be removed from here. So first thing what will happen, as soon as there is fusion and the things are being secreted out, now this GTP will again hydrolyze because the energy has been utilized. So the GTP will again hydrolyze. Now the GTP has hydrolyzed, so now it has again become RAB GDP. Okay, RAB GDP. And as soon as this RAB GDP occurs, this transition occurs, there are two proteins which come into active form. They are these two. Just remember the name like this only. No need to remember the full form. The full forms are given in the notes, but if you can remember, okay. If you can't, then also it's fine. But just remember the short forms, NSF and SNAPs. These are the two proteins which will come and bind with this vesicle, and they will unzip this form. Unzip. Okay, they will unzip this. And when they are unzipping, the vesicle will again bud out. And again it will be free, and again it will be this empty space will be created for the next function. Everyone got the things? You have to remember the name of the proteins. You have to remember the location and the mechanism and the role of RAB. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. All of you. So in very short, you will write the points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because in your analyze question, they will ask you the sequence, how this vesicle fusion occurs. They will ask you this sequence. The sequence is given here in the previous slide. In the 3 slides, they are given, but whatever I have explained you in a very short form, you just write down that, jot down that point in one line and finish. Your vesicle fusion, vesicle portion is done. Okay, the important thing is, where is this VAM protein located? Where is this syntaxin located? What is the role of RAB GTP? What is the role of NSF and SNAP? That's it. And how is this mechanism happening? That's it. Nothing more you have to read in this. Okay, with this, we have finished everything related to peroxisome and vacuoles. Polyps, okay. Now this polyps, they are a kind of symbiotic organism, corals. Okay, you must have heard about this corals. This Australia is having the longest coral barrier reefs, है ना? So that corals, they are of different colors, red, blue, green, yellow. They are of multiple colors. And why they are of multiple colors? Because they have the potentiality to make the pigments, but they cannot make the pigments on their own. They what they do, they eat this algae. Okay, but they are eating it in a way that they are not digesting it. They are storing this algae in the vacuoles, in the empty spaces. So inside the polyps, these algae are stored in the vacuoles. Now they are present inside the body of the polyps. The algae are present inside the body of the polyps. Now what is the role of this algae? Algae are photosynthetic organism, so they will photosynthesize. And they will photosynthesize, and just like plants, as the plants are having the capacity to make their own food, this algae are also photosynthetic, so they can make their own food. So ultimately that food is going to where? It is going to the corals. So they are getting what? They are getting the nutrition because of this symbiotic behavior. This is symbiotic mutualism. Coral is helping algae. How it is helping? It is protecting the algae from the invaders, because it has given shelter to this algae in his body. And in return, what is algae giving? Algae is photosynthesizing and giving the nutrients. So it is a kind of symbiotic behavior. But what we were studying? We were studying about the vacuole. So what is the role of the vacuoles here? The role is that algae are stored in the vacuoles. That is the empty space which is present in this polyps where these algae are stored. Understood, Asha? So we have finished with the portion. Tomorrow we'll complete. If it is 1 hour lecture, 2 hour lecture, no matter, but I'll complete the cytoskeleton portion. And tomorrow I'll include some videos also, because this muscle contraction, if you see it from the video, it will be easier. For vesicle fusion also, I'll see if I get any video. I'll show you tomorrow. So you will get to know that how this triggering is happening and everything, how this nucleation is happening. So it will be easy to remember. So tomorrow no one will miss the class, because cytoskeleton is very important portion, and basically the portion which is pertaining to the muscle contraction, actin and myosin portion. So tomorrow also 2 hours class will be there, but a very important portion will be covered, cytoskeleton. Okay. Nucleation is the first step. This is the first step where both this VAMP and the syntaxin, the synaptobrevin and the syntaxin are joining. That is the nucleation. Like in the zipper, when you are zipping your dress, the two zigzag portions you are pulling with a zip now. But if suppose you are not locking that zip, again the zip can fall down. So that locking is done by the SNAP25. And that first thing which is happening, the nucleation, that is between the syntaxin and the synaptobrevin. Understood, Asha? That is the first thing, the nucleation. When you are having this pullover sweaters, you have to hold the two ends together, and then you have to pull the zip up. If suppose the two ends are not hold properly, the zip will not be properly it will not come in the proper way. It will not be aligned properly. So that is the first nucleation, and then zippering, and then the locking system, the locking which is done by the SNAP25. Just read these 3 slides and you will get to know the things. Once you read this, whatever I have told you now, it's written in these 3 slides. Okay, so you will understand. Fine. I'll give the slides to sir, and he will pass it on to you. Fine. And tomorrow we will deal with the cytoskeleton. Fine. No questions now. No queries. A role of 1 second. What Asha was asking? Just a second. Role of ATP in this slide. No, ATP is not important, Asha, here. ATP is not important. Here you are telling ATP. This is because important is GTP, huh? GTP is very, very important because this RAB is functioning with GTP. This ATP, what is this for? Now see this NAP and NSF, what they are doing, they are coming to unzip this form. They are coming to bud out this vesicle. So for that they need energy, and that energy, tomorrow I have to go for PhD methodology class. Okay, Priyama, what is the timing? So after that for that unzipping process now, they need energy, and that is coming from this ATP. Okay, and once it is hydrolyzed, this zipper will ultimately fall off, and this vesicle will be budded off. Wherever ATP is coming, only one word you have to remember, it is for energy. But the main role here is of GTP. Okay, main role is of GTP. Wherever this ATP is there, just remember it is for energy. Understood? Priyama, when is your class for PhD methodology? If we can adjust the time, we will adjust that. Acha, you'll return at 9 p.m. Okay, okay. Okay, fine. So,
Okay.
You see
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
video, okay? And if you have any
Yes.
doubt,
Thank you, ma'am. So it was really very informative session. So students, if you have any query regarding today's task, please comment. If you understood today's task, please comment yes in the comment box. Just let us know. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And Priyama, no need to worry about it. We'll provide you recording and PPT and all. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now you can leave the meeting.